Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. Have you ever wondered how to thrive through life's storms? Well, we got a hurricane of a person for you today. So excited to wake up the Giant. Get ready to buckle up, and we're going to wake up the Giants. Boom. Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris, co-creator of Wake Up with Giants TV, a tribe of giants and 12 journeys coaching, and wrote a book, Journey of Riches, one of the contributing authors in there. And then I am here with Mr. Nicholas T. Smith, the author of The Giants and the Smalls, The Tortoise's Hair, a whole bunch of other things. And also the other half of all of the things that we've created. He has created so many great things. I'm grateful for him, Mr. Nicholas T. Smith. You have to wave though when I say that, Nick.
I'm doubling up, like trying to share videos on other sites. And
Just
hello, guys.
Hello, everyone. Oh my gosh, we got a great show. But before we do, we probably have a little bit of housekeeping.
Yeah.
We work on sharing what we've learned over our journey with you, and so we've created what we call our SG program. It's our Sum Gigante, which is I am giant in Latin. And what cohort are we on now, Nick? 17? Is
17.
that right?
Yeah. So you can go to my12journeys.com and read all about the SG program. So you just click on the orange button at the top and it'll go through the whole thing. We did introduce a new payment option on here, which is pretty cool. Just to make the barrier of entry a lot lower. You can actually join for $97 a month. It's on a 12-month pay plan, but it's a great program. This will change your life. We've developed on the back end of this to support you AI tools to help you with your kind of building this into your system. And so everything we built on the back end is available to you as a member of the program. Plus you get our live community, the tribe of giants. There's just so much. There's a limitless giant that you can be a part of as well through this program. But you do have to be a graduate to access these tools and those groups. And so we've built out over 20 applications, AI applications to help you break through some of the stories and narratives that are holding you stuck. We have all of our documentation in there. We just launched the Giants Journal. Let me just stop sharing so you can see that on one of these 4 screens that I got going. The Giants Journal is a new way to journal your life and what you're going through. And the first 20 pages are all designed to really help you journal properly so that you're anchoring it in at an embodied level. And so our goal with the SG program is to help you rewrite the stories that are keeping you stuck, the things that are keeping you from your dreams and visions, overcome grief, anxiety, depression. I can't say overcome, but work with. How about that?
I like that.
So very powerful programs to help you break free. And these are the things I'm using on me. You know, when I got diagnosed with anxiety disorder back in 2017, it didn't go away. I just learned to work with it. So still have anxiety to this day, even right now. So here we go.
So we've developed a whole bunch of hacks to help you be able to navigate. Is pretty much what it is, and there's so many there that any personality type, any person that's going through something can choose to find the things that work the best for them, and lots and lots of resources there. So if you're interested in that, reach out to Nick or I, and we'd love to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, we go live September 20th. It's going to be powerful. And so, turns out the things that get rid of anxiety, what it takes to get rid of anxiety and depression is what it takes to get rid of you. And we're not really in that business. So we teach you how to work with them instead.
Yeah, we're not in the mafia.
Dr. Kevorkian over. Yeah, we're not that. Cool.
Well, we have a fantastic for today's show. It's a dear old friend of ours. And Nick, will you introduce our guest? Because I'm sure the bio that you have ready is going to far exceed whatever I would say.
It's all right. It's a decent one. No, I know you know Rachel too. Rachel was actually one of the original founders of the Giants community with us, and so she's been an integral part of this, and she's on her own journey right now. So I'll introduce her. But she's a woman of extraordinary resilience, faith, and purpose. So, with nearly 3 decades as a naturopathic doctor, global wellness leader, and CEO of Smartt Transformations, Dr. Rachel Smartt has dedicated her life to uncovering the root causes of illness and guiding people to vibrant health through a food first philosophy grounded in science and faith. She's also a presidential marketing director with Juice Plus, a best selling author of Modern Day Miracles and Harder Storms, Higher Strength, and a voice of hope for anyone walking through challenges. Her message is clear. Health is not just a physical journey, but a spiritual one. And through Christ, we can rise strong, help heal deeply, and thrive beautifully. It's an honor to welcome Dr. Rachel to the show. Thanks for being here.
Oh, I am so glad that you had me back on. I think this is the third time, and I love your Ryan and you together. It's just a powerful pact, and your mission is so incredible. I had just been, touched by the message, and the things you continue to do totally inspire me and have helped me through my journey. Because you actually, Nick, you were one of my very first coaches when I was kind of coming into my own 20 years ago, and I pulled out your book.
Yes.
You sent me. You actually signed it. So I am a giant, and I have giant dreams. So I am grateful for both of you. I've learned a lot from you, Ryan, too. And just, I'm grateful to be able to share. And I was thinking, just we share things and we gain perspective ourselves as we share. And so those that are watching this, the audiences that are watching it, we're going to be able to share things with you, the audience, of things that can help you in your life and different perspectives on life and storms and trials.
No, I think this is vital. Everything that we do share, even in your story, is to help the person see in themselves, where they can grow, and even or heal. The word heal comes from wholeness, and so that's all we're trying to do is get you back to wholeness. And I think people get that misconstrued. The healing means going away, and it doesn't necessarily. It just means you're complete wherever you're at. So we always like to start in your journey, and we'll go back, even if we've shared this, it's going to come out a little different this time. But what is it that led to you being where you are today with the books, the movie that's coming up, your global leadership in Juice Plus? Like, what is it? What was the catalyst for all that really had you awaken that you needed to do something here?
Well, I love when we talk about, and the whole thing with the giant wake up, and we don't wake up until we're either inspired by something, but most often it's when we're desperate. Mm-hmm. When we hit with something amazing that caused you to really step back and think, to wake up to who are you? Who is God? Why is this happening? Or what can I do? It's all these things you learn in the storm, and then a lot of us out of the storm. But, when you get shaken up, you have to rethink things. And so my journey began. It's been 40 years. Wow. It's amazing how I lost my husband of 20 years married. And then it's been 20 years that he has passed. And I've been a widow. That kind of led me into the loss and to waking up who I needed to I guess not needed to, but I got to become. But I raised my 4 daughters as they're all married now. I'm a yaya of 9 grandkids. So it's a lot of people.
You're a yaya and I'm a yo-yo.
Yeah. A yo-yo, yeah. My mom's 100% Greek, so I get that yaya. And
that's cool.
But I woke up from that loss, something that shook me, and I had to understand what all life is meaning. And I discovered that in that storm, sometimes we think they're detours, but they're really an invitation. And so what awoke me, what led me to teach and to write about resilience in faith and losses. And by the way, there's lots of losses, not just a death. So if you're watching this, there's not just if you had somebody die, but it's a loss of relationship or a loss of health or a loss of, it could be a child or whatever you're going through. It's all about losses. And I believe most things are about somehow a loss. And so I basically started when my husband died, and we'll go into a lot when you ask me questions, but I learned how to love, how to let go, how to, who am I in my first books, Modern Day Miracles. And I think I came on the very first time when we came on together was about that book. It was really the story about miracles and about perfect alignments and how all those things happen in a family, and people can relate because it's not just my family, but it's about how you can learn from navigating the brutal, I call it beautiful and brutal life, and how to really expect those miracles.
So that's a great word for it.
I don't know if I made it up, but it was brutal life. We're all brutal, and then with beautiful, that's what it's all about. And I learned to, I think my last chapter in that book was a skydiving analogy. I went skydiving, and it's just learning to free fall and surrender the things you can't control, and to harness right with the right. I believe it's the Lord in my life to be able to see things in different perspectives. So that was the loss kind of went into that book. And then 10 years later, now it's really a restored perspective, because I've grown a lot, so you learn and you have a lot more to give. And I realized that a second book called Harder Storms, Higher Strength is where I am now. Just launched it 2 weeks ago, was about really the framework, the roadmap of how to navigate the things I have learned, not just by reading, but by living it out. And there are the 7 pillars to how to navigate the hard storm. So that's kind of where I am now.
Yeah. And I remember back to our original conversations. I mean, this is going, Robin Pooley was the one that introduced us, I believe.
Oh my gosh.
And so I remember, this was so long ago. I could picture the office and everything. I had a picture behind me, a tapestry, like I picture the whole thing. And the conversations were really about getting okay with what is, and in your books and in your story, you've navigated some really hard things. And a lot of us really don't want to go through that. We don't want to face the hard things. But it's in those hard things that we wake up to things that are very valuable for us, things that tell us our gifts and our impact in the world that we get to make. Sometimes we can't even see it until we go through the hard things, and it really has us reflect on everything. Can you speak to the importance of these challenges and trials?
Well, I do. And what came to my mind when you were saying that, it was kind of like when you're panning for gold. I don't know if you've ever been on vacation where you go pan for gold, but you have to find
every vacation.
And you shake and shake and shake, and finally you see the gold kind of surface. So what surfaces is those things that you need to learn, and life is, bringing things to us of how we need to maybe see things differently through pain or loss, or the asking better questions. So for me, navigating these things have brought me, like I said, it's not always, it's very, very hard, but the joy by looking back, often it's looking back and layering, like, wow, how much I have learned, how much I have to offer the world. A lot of it's all about love, giving back to those, helping others to rise and know that we're not alone in this journey. We help each other build, like you're building a community. We are not walking the path alone. I believe God is the reason why we have the best help and perspective. But a lot of times those settling into these trials, it makes us really ask better questions and having better priorities as well.
Yeah, I can see that. I look at some of the trials I faced, and when I went through them with whatever knowledge I had at the time. And I did the best I could with what I had. And a lot of times I was ill-equipped. I didn't know how to handle it. But going through it woke me up to things that I needed to learn. And I didn't know I needed to learn them until I experienced the trial. And it's like these difficulties, these challenges, these tribulations, whatever you want to call them, the storms of life, they come in and they stir everything up, right? And you manage them the best you can with what you have, but they give you an opportunity to, like you said, learn something new. And so how do you keep from moving to a space of judgment or justification for being angry or bitter? Because I think anger and rage are going to be part of that process of grieving when something happens. But how do you keep from getting consumed by that and getting stuck in old patterns so that you can grow? How do you do that?
Well, I think, like you say, it's surely a mess. You drive through it with what you can. And I think when I was hit with what I went through, I was I'm like real shy. I like to be behind people. I didn't sit in the front row. I was always the back, and just taking out the main person in my life, that he was the big person, and the loud, and the people person. And I really liked to be behind, and I was forced to be in the front, and that was scary for me. And I did it with very, very clunky. I was messy and in the ditches, and that made me I had to make a decision. I was going to either your mind, you make a decision, you're going to stay there and cry. You need to cry. You get mad. You go through all the emotions of things when you get hit down. And then you got to say, what am I going to do? Do I choose to stay there? Am I going to choose to rise? And then how do I ask for help if I don't have the skill? How I'm going to process it is you got to feel the pain. You got to feel, you got to let it go through you. And then it's just like a seed, you start planting it, things start coming out of it. And then you learn as you go and you find your voice. I didn't have a big voice in the beginning. I didn't even know who I was really. And a lot of things happened where I had to ask the better questions. Okay, I got a choice, and I'm going to choose to go through this messy journey. And I know I'm going to be on top if I partner with the right people and the right experiences, and I'm willing to change.
Yeah. I've seen people that, life doesn't go wrong necessarily. They've accomplished a lot, but they want to do more, right? And they go through the same experience that you're describing. So they go to do something they've never done before, and it throws them into that kind of that grief loop of there's this ideal that they have, and they look at where they're at and they grieve what doesn't exist between that ideal and where they're at. And they find themselves going back to old patterns and coming back to face that current situation. Kind of that starting from scratch. It's almost like a storm in a way, not only when your life gets disrupted, but anytime you go to do something bigger than you've ever done before, you're going to go through a similar disruption where you're going to start to question yourself. You're going to reflect on things. You might feel the anger, the denial, the bargaining, all these things that come up with that grief. And that's where grief gets really complex. Is it's not just death. Like you said, it could be a loss of a relationship, a loss of a job, a loss of a dream, or setting a dream and thinking you're too far away from it and feeling that loss that way. And it hasn't even happened yet. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, there's so many layers to it all, but I think that the biggest thing to know, you have to go through the stuff and feel everything. And then the surrendering part is where you just, I'm going to let some things be, trust the process, and to be able to know that the answers will come. But you have to learn that. It's like as a child, they're going to have to learn. I had to learn that. And at a certain point, I just, I had my, go back to the loss, the lessons that teach you are the hardest ones. And I'm realized that I'm nobody but me, and I'm going to have to learn the skills to not let things just flatline me. And maybe it's the way you think of it, flatlining, or basically a way to rise. And I remember I had experience really at the beginning. I don't know if you're trying to get where we're going as far as, what we're going to do, but this is one of the things that came to my mind when I had a dream when it was right before I was experiencing, Dave's death. And I left the bedroom because I just had to let it all out, and I went downstairs and I was just crying and crying and crying. I mean, I couldn't control it. It was just so much building of the unknown. How was it going to happen? What was it going to mean? And all these things I was trying to best prepare. And it was a lot of times robotic in the way I did it because I was just frozen in many ways. But I recall the movie Alice in Wonderland, that she was, falling down the pit. So I was falling down this pit, and I was crying the big tears. And as I was getting smaller, the tears got bigger. And pretty soon I said, I'm going to drown. I'm dying. It's too much. And I remember the water started filling up the space of where I was, and it was crying and crying and crying up to here. I started to panic. I thought I'm going to die. And then I got up to here and I go, wait, I'm floating. Whoa. Okay. I'm being lifted. Oh, wow. This is taking me from not a place of sorrow, which it was, but the tears, the learning, the letting go, and all those things that started making me rise. I wasn't drowning. I was rising. I was becoming, I was being formed to a higher place. And that's the strength we get to as we go through things. It's not, we could think we're drowning, but we're really rising, or have a chance to rise.
Beautiful. Like you just gave us a gold nugget there of narrative. And the narrative was I'm drowning to know I'm floating. And that shift in narrative shifted the perspective, because I want to create some connections here if we can real quick, because that perspective, that story is what we tell. And when you look at identity, it's the same word as identical, which means the same as. So your inner world matches your outer world. And so when you feel that loss of identity or that imposter syndrome, often you are speaking things that aren't aligned with your outer world, right? And so our goal of the brain is to fix that. It wants to create a leveling out there. So if you're looking at something new and you're feeling overwhelmed and you're telling the story, I'm feeling overwhelmed, well, the brain doesn't know any different. It's going to respond to that as if maybe a tiger was in the room. So you get into that drowning state. But that shift of story is enough for the brain to start creating an identical exterior world where now your inner calm of I'm not drowning, I'm rising, now allows you to go out in the outer world and create that peace in the outer world. And I think this is where most people get stuck, is it's not a fault of the biology or the mechanics here. It's a fault of the stories that are coming up. Yeah, trading to surviving. It's what you're telling as a story is coming from that inside out, and it gets reflected in the outer world, and the brain tries to reconcile the differences, if any, or it levels out and creates peace when they're the same. So your identity. Does that make sense? Did I just kind of ramble all over the place?
No, there's so many, it's a lot of layers in that. And I was just, we read, like, I was just kind of reading and studying Viktor Frankl, and having like his story. I mean, losing all of his family with the whole losses that come, and just being able to say, I'm going to suffer. Do I choose to suffer? And he had to work all these things out. And one of the best speakers of the subject, but just drawing that meaning and changing perspective, using your, both glasses on. Sometimes I get stuck when I can't see. I realize I only have one contact in, being clear of like, what am I really seeing? And remember a thing that came to me when I was struggling with a lot. I was trying to be somebody else. I was trying to fill somebody else's shoes. And I realized I have to fill my own, because I'm always going to be, you talk about anxiety with you. Anxiety comes from trying to be somebody else.
Yeah.
And so we have to say, well, I'm just going to unveil, take it off, you're exposed. Yeah. And then you have to learn to see it differently. And I remember just by getting on this little live, when I my very first interview with a live was 20 years ago, I was so scared.
Yeah.
Because I was always like, what people are going to think, what I'm going to be tripped up, they all the things that were coming to me. And then I realized I changed that perspective of when that camera goes on, is that if God's on, he's going to bring out the best in me, that I didn't get scared because it wasn't about me.
Yeah.
But you have to get out of the way and go, what's going on? But we have to just trust it, and we have to choose and learn, because you teach that in your books and all these things. So I basically read the book last night, and I typed up all the things that the giant and the small, the mindset of, you have to have a belief. What is the belief? Are you small? You're going to stay small. You're going to die small. You're going to eat small, and it's the way we see ourselves. And that was the first thing in your book. I'm going to give you a little plug for your book, because I love your book.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, then the curiosity piece, I wonder, who am I? Could I be better? Let's be inspired by the giants, because you have to know there's a different path, right?
Right.
And then to take the risk. Well, I'll do something I never done before. Oh, that's scary. You get all scared because you didn't do it. So you're taking everything off, and now you're scared. You have to face it. Then you ask for help. You ask the other giants. You ask other books. You ask the other programs.
Yes. Yeah.
What is possible? Is there a vision? Because I had to see a vision of where it comes from. Somebody else shares it and go, that's it.
Yeah.
Or leaving it out and go, I'm feeling good, or whatever. But the vision, it comes, and it takes a lifetime often. And that's where we get stuck sometimes. We think it should happen when you want it. And then the action, the messy, falling down, the old weeds. And then this is what I think it was Ritt. He said, I commit to be a giant. And then he went into the messy. He didn't wear the right clothes. It wasn't fitting anymore. Then you realize you can't ever go back, because you already went forward. And then you rewrite that. And then Remy was amazing. It was a partnership and friendship and patience. So that's I think that kind of comes into what we're talking about. We have to go through the different mindsets.
Yes.
Then learning how to navigate the struggles, the storms, and having better resiliency too.
Well, you hit on Viktor Frankl, you hit on choices, you hit on decision making, you hit on vision. Like these are all parts of the 12 journeys. So when we go through the 12 journeys, those first 6 are in that inner world, the next 5 are in the outer world, and the last journey is on legacy and impact, what your gift is and how you give that to the world. And when you mentioned getting up on the camera and worrying about what others think of you, that's where anxiety comes in. As Lisa Feldman Barrett says, it's that we measure ourselves against what we think others are thinking, and we create our own anxiety. It's a story. It's the brain's way of making sense of everything that's going on in us. And then we generate that anxiety to try and align with what we think society wants for us, or people, or family. And if we can just let that go, right, then we can choose to go in another direction. So Viktor Frankl says, in between choice and what is it? Choice and decision, somewhere in there. Anyway, opportunity and decision is a choice. You really just, is that what it is? You get to choose. You have all these choices out here, but the decision is to cut off. It's like, I'm going to cut off all my other options. I'm going to go with this choice. And that can be scary, because then we have to let go of all the other options that are out there, and we don't want to miss out. But in choosing into that, we may still end up somewhere else, but we can't move forward until we eliminate all the choices and make a decision. Is that accurate?
Yes, and also the controlling what you can control and what you can't control, because sometimes we try to control other people or whatever. And I learned in my life, I can't control anything but my attitude. I can't control what I'm getting from people. I control what I'm giving. And when I turn around and give, and that same thing with Viktor Frankl is like turning the meaning to what his life was about, or I turn meaning to what my pain was. I can serve, I can give out what I feel called to do. And then I'm not afraid at all. Is when you get in your own head about what I'm getting versus what I'm giving, you only can really control what you give, not what you're getting. And
beautiful. Yeah. When we went to the UK, I was the MC for the event. And on the top of my paper, I wrote, when you're in service, you can't be nervous. And so it shifted the focus from in here of what do people think about me to how can I serve these people? There are 300-400 people in that room. And I just made it my goal to serve them, to forget about this guy for a minute and let me serve those people in that seat. And it shifted the whole energy. I mean, it was powerful. And so that giving, right?
Well, I think too, like we're talking about resiliency and storms. And when I get nervous, I just put a big bow around what I'm, like you said, a big bow is a gift, what I want to give you and not about me. And then it helps you. And that's the same way with going through any kind of storms. If you can find the meaning in that and then turn it around. And most often people that find their path is through a clunkiness and a path of sorrow or loss or overcoming the poor identity or whatever. And then you're able to share it as a gift, and you grow as you share. Because there's something about, sharing and growing too, because it comes out of yourself and it ingrains it, imprints it in your own self when you teach, because you learn as you do, right? We learn if we don't know it. Got to move your feet a little bit in action, and then you're going to figure it out as you just take a step forward.
Yeah. Ryan, do you have some thoughts on that?
I was thinking about when we went to of in the line of control of like we have this ideal of how it's going to be, and we try to make sure that everything works out. We maybe as humans we try to plan our whole entire life of when we're going to graduate, when we're going to have this career, when we're going to have children, or whatever we do. We map it all out to be this perfectly curated life. And when we went to England to speak, God had different plans for us because nothing was working out. Like we left Chicago late because of a situation. Because we left Chicago late, we missed
because
our
of some
connecting
bad
flight.
food.
Somebody had some bad food, and then we got to Ireland and got stuck in Ireland, and was there most of the day. So we burned a whole entire day, and they were telling us that we weren't going to be able to get out till the next day, and we we're like, that's not going to work for us. It pushed us to be a little bit resilient and ask a few more questions, ask a little bit of of grace of some people that work there. But ultimately, we had to let go. We didn't have control of the planes, the pilots, the people, their bowel movement, all of that stuff that caused the delay, right?
Yeah.
There was a lot that was out of our control. So then well, Nick did. I'm going to say Nick was way better at it than me because my anxiety level was through the roof, and Nick is a grounding point for me. So he was like, it'll be all right. We'll figure it out. We're meant to be here. He went back to his training faster and quicker than I did. And as soon as we started to do that, like we'll see how it goes. It's going to work out however it goes. It's the universe is working for me, not against me, or, to me. It's happening for me. And as soon as we did, some of the most beautiful things started to these dominoes started to fall in the right timing. It wasn't my right timing, because my right timing would have been there on time early, and had a full day wherever else I was planning in my head. But it shifted so much. I felt like at the beginning we missed out, and then after that happened, I thought, oh my gosh, I would have missed out on these opportunities had it all gone the way that I had wanted it to go, and it needed to go the other way. Truthfully, it taught me so many lessons. I built some relationships and friendships that never would have been, um, because of being late, and the delays in life. So when we talk control, I think it's interesting how much we think we're in control of things when truly, uh, God usually has a little bit of a different plan or different timing for us. And if we trust in, or the universe, or the, whatever is going on in the world, if we can just let go and trust, usually things work out, for the better.
Hmm.
So
I,
it's
yeah, go
amazing.
ahead.
It reminded me of when I was young, newly married, pretty much 3 years in. We went to 1989 to St. Thomas, and we were going on what we thought was the second honeymoon, and we got caught in the Hurricane Hugo.
Mm,
And like you said, Ryan, sometimes you don't. Is it happen if life happening to you or for you? And so we thought we're going on this amazing had a 3 day of bliss, blue sky, honeymoon beaches, iguanas, and all the hibiscus flowers. We're having the best time of our life. And here comes this massive level 5 hurricane, the worst they've ever seen, and we're watching this whole thing happen. And just the spinning of the storm, and then all of a sudden the eye of the storm was right over us, and then one week of martial law, and
hmm,
having to evacuate the island and having no water and no, you start learning. I remember more of that experience than I'd ever remember the honeymoon beach per se. You know what I mean? Because you had to make the friends, and I think that comes back to what we're talking about is not having the expectations, the square box. 1+1 is 2. It's 1+1 is 1,000. And it's just like just go with the flow, and like going into a wave. You don't just fight the wave, you just kind of go under the wave, and then you can get through it and not have it be so hanging on and trying to control everything, because that's where you get the worst. The anxiety and the illnesses come out of those trying to control everything.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of thought too around when you're creating, in Alice in Wonderland, going back to that. If you don't know where you're going, any path will do, in reference to that book. And when it comes to visioning, a lot of people won't vision what they want to create in their world because they can't see how they're going to do it or when they're going to do it. And those are the two biggest hangups that we see, is they want to know the how and the when. And when it comes to vision, you don't know either of those. You can't know either of those. Steve Jobs says that. He says you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only do that backward. And so if we look at all the dots that connected for us to be here today, there's no way I would have taken the steps, because it's so much. Like, to see everything play out the way it did, it's like if I had seen that in advance, there's no way I would have taken the step. I would have been too overwhelmed. So there's a grace in not knowing. And the brain is designed for prediction because it wants to conserve energy. And so it's trying to predict what's going to happen next. And when there's no clear answer, it'll go back to the default mode of what you already know and run that, because it thinks it can count on that. And that creates safety. And that creates an energetic homeostasis, just a set point. So when we face the unknown, the first thing you want to do when you face the unknown is imagine and create what you want to create. where you want to go, not how you're going to get there or when you're going to get there. And then to surrender, like you say, is you don't know the pathway. You just have to trust that the next step you take is going to get you there. But you do have to take a step, right? It's not like you can just imagine it and then it shows up like a genie in a lamp. Can you speak to that a little bit? But how much effort is enough?
Well, I think, like you say, it's definitely a process, but I think everything begins with what you are grateful for. If you talk about gratitude, get your
Yeah.
mind right. I always like in my morning routine, I've imagined it comes out with I do two things that I'm grateful for in present tense and one thing I'm grateful for in future tense.
Ooh,
So
I
I'm
like
so grateful now that, and then I'm going forward with what I want to create because I get stuck in life when you got a project that you get it done or you do
that.
something and you think, wow, you're always trying to reimagine and sometimes you just like a maze. You go here, no, go over here, no, go over here. And oh, you got it, you're doing great, and it just kind of morphs as you take action. You're going to be flowing and getting the answers and trusting it. And the more you get you need a little win, and so maybe part of the thing too is finding out what's the win for the day because you got to be able to get a little something under your belt, and then you start having a better stepping stone to going. I can do this. And then you'll find like we aligned all of you, with you and Ryan. It was the perfect alignment with Robin
Yeah.
Pulley. And then years later, and then you help me, I help you. And, we learn from each other and then we have different paths, but we all support the same message of get up,
Yeah.
Yeah. And keep walking.
It's
And
interesting to see what happens as you do step forward. Like at the beginning, we say giants take small steps; they're just bigger, because your capacity grows, right? Your new baseline is different as you gain that capacity. As you step forward, you're like, oh my gosh, I did that! I can do that! Oh my gosh, look, maybe I could do something more or different or better or whatever the phrase is. But at the beginning, that small step might feel like a giant step, but as you take them one step in front of the other and start compounding those steps,
mm,
it's amazing to see what happens when you look back over, we've been doing this for what, 5 6 years, 7 years almost. It's like
yeah.
you look backwards and go, oh, I'm nowhere near where I was before. I'm miles out now, and in a completely different direction than I originally thought I would be, in life, in careers, and all kinds of things. Totally different spot, but I was pushing forward to where
Mhm.
a vision or a goal, and now my capacity to do things is way higher. I went through a job loss recently, and when I got let go of that job, uh, I've been let go of a job before, and that feeling of just I'm not enough, the unworthiness, the I didn't perform the way I should have, like the anger, all the stuff that would normally come up. It didn't come up in the way that I expected it to come up this time. I
Mm,
went, oh, okay. It was so weird. Like it was like the biggest shift, and I even it was so weird that it scared the crap out of me. Like I was like, wait, whoa, this is new. Okay, that realization actually gave me more bubble guts than not having a job.
yeah.
And I was like, I'm okay. This is
Mhm.
happening for me. What is next? I'm excited. This is awesome. I'm more prepared for anything that than I've ever been in my entire life. And within a few weeks, I had 4 6-figure job offers,
Mhm.
and that is something that, like, I had to go put in some action. I took a day to just rest and just kind of not do anything, as to some advice of an amazing coach, Mr. Nicholas T. Smith. Um, and there was some feelings that then trickled in, but because of what I've learned and the work that I've done, I was able to move through it very, very quickly.
Mhm.
And now take another step forward, take another step forward, just keep stepping and
Mhm.
compounding that. And my new baseline is completely different than 5 or 6, 7 years ago, where this would have just destroyed me and I would have, been in my own head for years, maybe. Who knows?
Mm.
So, what you're saying is, I believe it wholeheartedly, Rachel.
Mhm.
Any thoughts with that, Rachel?
I just keep thinking of things like the stock market, suddenly
Yeah.
it goes up and it goes down and it goes up and it goes down. But if you look over a period of time, you don't realize it and you go, well, I think differently. I rise better, or I'm more compassionate. I'm more, whatever it is. But it's some of this, we get caught in the down. We think, oh, I'm not enough, or I'm trying to hustle, or whatever we're trying to do in that down spell, but we're actually going up because
Yeah.
over time, it's not all the way down to the same level. And that's, it just helps you realize the power of the compound effect. That's one of my favorite books. And
Yeah.
Great book.
yeah, you have to get back to the little things are the little things. And I used to think, gosh, and I did my, starting out with even a career, it's like I needed to run and, bust it, and there's a time for sprinting and there's a time for, I have a team called Team Thoroughbred. So it's like I can sprint, walk, trot, never quit, but there is time for sprinting. But the best is just steadiness, and being able to know there's time to rest, like you, Ryan, take time after you had been hit hard to rest a little bit, because you have perspective when you think about, let's be quiet so we can hear things, and then make tweaks and pivots along the way. But as long as we're looking up or future vision, and if we need help, we're going to gather it somewhere, and then we have to try new things. So we wire the brain, we rewire the way we rise, because it all is about rising, right? But no one wants to be, if you're 120 years old, I don't know who's ever the 120, but you want to be better than you were. And usually with age, there's a perspective that comes that it's about consistency.
It's amazing that once you've grown something or earned it, that it doesn't fully ever go away. So with muscles, once you've developed that muscle, the cells are stretched out to such a point that they'll never go back to the original state. They'll go back to the set point that you just created. And then if you lost it, it'll go back to that level, but it won't go below that usually, unless there's just a prolonged period of not doing. But as soon as you get back on it, it builds up faster because you have spent the time to do that. Yeah. So with the vision, what that does is it gives you something to measure against. So when it comes to everything we're talking about here, it's about stretching, right? Intention and intendere, tendons, attention, entertainment, they all come from that word stretch. And without a vision, we don't stretch. And without a vision, we don't feel depressed usually. Often, we have a vision and we feel depressed because we're not measuring up to our ideal. Or somebody else has a vision for us and we feel anxious because we're not measuring up to their ideal. But it's better to get back into our world and create our own ideal. And when you have that vision, you stretch, but people get stuck in entertainment, which means between stretches. And so they get stuck in entertainment versus growth. So they never really develop anything. They're just entertained, right?
Mm-hmm.
And without that vision, you just kind of entertain yourself. You're taking steps, but for what? Where are you going? There's no direction for it. And so anything will do. Can you speak to that a little bit? How important is that vision?
Well, I think the vision changes as you grow. So every time you get to different, maybe 10 steps or whatever, you go, I see it differently. I hear it differently. I could, you're doing different things based on that knowledge and that perspective of the higher level. But I think it's just it is a journey, and we're going to be sliding, down a lot of times that we don't have to look at it as a flat line, but it's really the front line of moving forward.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, front line versus a flat line, right? So we fall back to that front line. And what if your vision isn't very clear? What if it's just, I remember when I went to Puerto Vallarta years ago, I all I had was a vision of being on the beach with a cigar and feet in the sand. That's all I wanted to do. And so it became a reality. That became a reality. And that was enough of a vision to get me to stretch toward that. And it became a reality. So how clear does a vision have to be for us to actually create it?
It has to be very intense, to be able to drive you to do it, but it often comes from the pain point.
Okay.
And so when I remember once I went to a conference years and years ago, but they had us do something to get our vision. And they had this, give everybody a white poster. They gave us a stack of like in little sticky notes,
Hmm.
and they had us basically make a storyline of our lives at that point. So you have different chapters, and we only had like 30 minutes to write down every experience we could think of, good or bad or brutal, as
Yeah.
fast as we could, different stages of our life as early as we could remember, all the way up to present. And then we had to categorize them into the chapters of what we thought the younger years, middle age, or older. And then there was about 5. They said you put a red dot on the pain or a turning point experience.
Oh,
So
wow.
you're looking at your life at this, zooming in, like what happened, and you start seeing patterns. And for me, this is just me. I've done this before. I go, wow, I was born a month early. They thought I was premature, breech baby, blue baby. They said, get a funeral plot. She's not going to make it. So I see that pattern of resiliency starting at a young, I wasn't, coming early. Maybe it's the Russian me, the racer Rachel, trying to get
Yeah.
a little soon, and then I go through a lot with my childhood, a little bit of lots of ruffles and a little bit of hustling and comparing perfection. I had a little trauma going on, that triggered all these little emotions that I was wondering about love. Is it unconditional love? Is what is real love? And then I find a person in my life that was the end all be all unconditional love and acceptance and made me the queen of all get out. And all of a sudden pulled out.
Yeah.
So I have to go back to looking at these pain points. I had to make meaning with the red dots. Back to that, every dot I had to say, what was the meaning? There are 5 things I gained from that experience, that terrible thing that happened when I was younger, or the loss, or the hustle, or the whatever it was. And I had to draw meaning from that. And then I got a vision. Well, okay, this is the path. I can see it clearly what's happening here.
Yeah.
Me, this is my experience. It's, that faith, resiliency. And that's kind of been clear as I went along, but I had to go back and go, what does this mean over here? And that's kind of maybe an idea for some to really look at the pain points and say, what did I learn from that? And often it is from a harder thing that you learn the greatest lessons, and is the better questions. Asking the better questions in the pit, you learn to have meaning, and then you find your vision.
There's so much power right there. The questions, they're in the book, and we found that questions generate more activity than affirmations. And the right questions, the more powerful your questions are, the more likely you are to grow in a stronger way, versus saying I am something or I have this, which we do with affirmations and declarations. Because if you don't believe those fully, then your body's going to resist them and you're not going to work toward them. So that's where affirmations and declarations can be very challenging. But when you ask powerful questions, your mind goes to work and it can't leave an open loop. It's like you left the door open, you need to go shut it. And so it opens up to the brain looking for the solutions to those questions, and the questions you ask matter. If you're constantly asking, why am I so dumb? Why do I suck at life? You're going to find the answers to those questions, undoubtedly. But if you ask the questions, how can I create this dream that I have? How could I become stronger in this area? What would I like to create? Those questions are going to get you to expand, right? And it sounds like when you go through the storms of life, it just gets you to ask better questions. It gives you the opportunity to ask better questions. Can we say
It's
it
also
that way?
defining. It's also defining things too, because I've been in the recent book that I have. It's the 7 pillars, and I have a section on rewriting your story. And the greatest storm is not the storm; it's complacency. We drift and we get off track and everything. But I have 3 questions at the end of each pillar, and one of the first ones. And I did an open book launch just 2 weeks ago, and I told one of the tips I tell people maybe to find your vision or ask the better questions is turn your phone off. Turn your phone off, because I remember when I was getting ready to write this, it was a year and a half ago, 18 months ago or whatever, last January, year and a half. I wanted to get a vision. So I start in, usually it's August and January, I kind of circle it back and zone it in. And I had my phone on silent. I had it put aside, and I was thinking about my New Year's resolutions. What did my vision need to be? And I just always say a prayer. What do you want more of me? That's what was my question. What do you want more of me in this certain year?
Yeah.
And I got the impression, turn your phone off. And I thought it was already off. I had it silent, turned over, turn it off. So I turned it off, and then it was like right with me, like I got the downloads. And so when I was going to this book launch to back up one of these, I told the lady that was struggling with a divorce and raising her kids and revamping a new job. She said she hadn't ever turned her phone off. And she said when she did that, it was like a night and day. Do not silent your phone, turn it off at periods of time when you want to really get that vision and perspective and better questions. And then she started reading my first pillar is partnering with the Lord. That's the first pillar. Okay. And then at the very end of the book, I asked questions of where have you seen that the tender mercies, where have you seen the Lord in your life? And she started crying because she couldn't see the vision. She couldn't see the past. Yeah. I said, let's start with gratitude. And then we redefined where are you trying to get the answers from? Sometimes you dismiss it because it was the friend that came by. It was a little music that was turned on. You're waiting for this light bulb thing to tell you what your dream is. All of a sudden it was like the butterfly. Oh my goodness, little things that come along go, you're missing the boat. Do you have children? That's a blessing. That's a miracle. So we start realizing the dreams, the visions, they come, but you got to get quiet, ask the questions, and then don't dismiss it because you think you know what you think you know, and you have to go, it wasn't what I thought it was.
That gratitude opens your eyes too to the enoughness that surrounds you. Like everything you need is already there. You just can't see it. And so gratitude puts you in a space of acknowledging everything I need is here. I already have enough. I mean, that's a beautiful thing because that's a foundation of abundance. And when you know you have abundance, now when you look at your vision, it's like everything I need to create that vision is already here. When you look at uncertainty, it's everything's possible. And so now if nothing is off the table and everything I need to create that is already here, and gratitude helps me to see that, now surrender helps me to let go of the pathway and trust that every step I take is going to lead me toward what I'm creating. And if it doesn't go the way I thought, a failure is simply a negative yield from the efforts. Well, then I'll adjust until I create the positive yield from my efforts. It's not failure in the sense we've made it where you suck. It's not that. Right.
No, but you feel like you have. There's a point in our journey where you go, I'm not good enough. I'm not what I should be, or I can't, won't, don't. And back to the affirmations, I always like to take the fears that you have and then put them over here and go, let's add on to that by reframing. What are you feeling right now? And you go, well, I feel overwhelmed. I feel stressed. I feel anxious. What do you want to feel? I feel strong and capable, connected or whatever. And then you add on the ands, a couple of different ones with those affirmations. And then you make your vision based on going forward. And it's all, a step in the process, but it's, that vision will be clear. Just like, what's that little, remember that toy when you were younger, you looked at it and you kind of dialed it in and it changed as you turned it around.
Like a kaleidoscope type of a thing? Yeah.
I used to lay on the ground when I was a little kid and just like, that is so cool to see what things can be. But as you grow, you see different things. And I had a cool experience that happened just recently. I had this book launch and my 4 daughters, 2 came and they gave me this butterfly that was sculpted, and it was like a 3D stained glass butterfly because it's kind of something in a lot of the books that it's like little things that happen in my life that show me I'm on track, And so I go, well, I need to find a fishing wire, so it's invisible, so I can hang it somewhere really cool and like in a window. And so I was thinking, well, let me go out to the shed, see if Dave had left a fishing pole out there, some fishing wire. There was no fishing wire. So I thought, well, I need to go to the store and get one. And I was thinking about that for 2 days in a row. And I told my daughter, she was leaving the day, one of my daughters leaving out of town. I said, go take the garbage out and I'll go to the store and go get some fishing wire because I want to hang that butterfly up, And she went outside and took the garbage out. And on the way back behind my car, you're never going to believe what it was. It was a wad of fishing wire. Like, oh my gosh, what do we not see? So maybe that's an analogy of when you want something, things just come,
Yeah.
Yeah, baby. I don't know who gathered that, the squirrel. I mean, it happened right behind my car. Like it was just a wad of random fishing wire. Are you kidding me? So I have learned to see things that aren't there and vice versa. But accepting the miracle, embracing the miracle.
Rachel, I saw like as you were asking for it and being committed to get the fishing wire, I saw like a whole separate, like thousands of miles away, some fisherman gets a tangle, wads this up, throws it out, and a seagull catches it and flies it across Florida and drops it on your car.
That's
right
funny.
at the moment you go out, right? And you're like, what the heck is this? But
Oh,
it's, yeah,
it's crazy. It's like, what are we not seeing that we should be seeing? Like, our world is amazing and miracles are there. They're everywhere. They're in every day. We just have to know what is a miracle. We expect it to be sometimes this big thing. It's like, oh my gosh, the friend called me. Oh my gosh, that, and sometimes they get the big things like the random fishing wire, kidding me? But it makes you realize, like you said, Rick, Nick, the world has everything we need, and we don't need to have that fear of I don't I don't have enough of whatever. I have to. I remember I used to be into perfectionism and workaholic because I was trying to control some of those things as I was working in my giantness.
Yeah,
my
right.
path. I was like, I need to be like, too much competing instead of completing, too much hustling instead of too much resting in the Lord.
Right.
And it was so much trying to be what my dad thought I should be, or what I thought I should be, or what I felt I should, whatever. And I realized that's when you get so stuck, and just put your hand over your heart and go, I'm enough. And the things are going to show up behind my car. They're going to show up in the whatever, the people are going to be at the store or whatever. If we have that good gratitude energy and be kind, smile to people. You never know what's coming your way. And life is good.
Yeah. So let's finalize here with impact and legacy. Are you okay for a couple minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you look at legacy, which is the 12th journey, and it's the gift that you give to the world, whether you're alive or dead, it's the gift you give to the world, the impact, the ripple. And for the Giants, our goal is to create a positive ripple in the world. And that legacy, when we look at the legacy and thread it through everything, it feeds into all of the inner journeys. It feeds into the outer journeys. And ultimately, it creates a positive ripple in the world. And a lot of people ask the question, well, how do I know what my gift is? How do I know what my purpose is or my meaning is? And how do I find that, right? How do you find it? Can you speak to your version of gifts and purpose and meaning and that legacy? And why is that so important? How do you discover that or create that? And why is that so essential to everything else?
Well, I've kind of trickled into some of those things, but I think sometimes I think asking the questions, and I think prayer is important, because if you don't ask, you're never going to see, because you're not looking to see it. The more you see, the more you want to see, right? And the more you see, the more you believe. I had an experience that happened toward the end of, I did 7 pillars, and the last one was community, and so it's really building that community and family, faith, and all these things that surround us to help us to live that giant life that we're talking about, rising. And I was trying to put it all together with this book, Harder Storms, Higher Strength. And I had went to a conference last August, and I was in Arizona. And after the conference was over, you have a lot thrown at you. And so you have to kind of have a day to rest a bit. So you can kind of let it settle in, and then you can start making goals or dreams, because you have to process, right? So I decided to go to a church that was my church. It was like a block away, and it was a very affluent area. And I thought, I'm just going to be a bystander. I'm just going to get my little rest here, but I'm not going to be anybody. I'm going to be in the back row and the back bench. I'm just going to observe, but I'm still thinking about this book that I'm doing about harder storms, higher strength, and building legacy, community, and what it's all about, really. And so I sat in the back row, and they were very good greeters. It was a very affluent church ward. You could tell by the girls' shoes, and they all had it together, and lots of family packed ward. And I just sat by, and I was just thinking, wow, this is looking really nice. I was seeing with the different eyes, looked all good to me. And they had the music was playing, and we have sacrament or the communion or whatever you call it was being passed. And then there was a song, "As I have loved you, love one another. And by this you shall know that you are my disciples." And then all of a sudden, my eyes changed. I had missed what was right in front of me. There was a row. I was sitting on the back row, and there was a gap, and then there was the front part of the chapel going in, and there was a man. There was an older man that could tell, a gray hair on the back, and then right beside him was a boy man in a wheelchair. Looked like he was in very full-time care, strapped in, like, I don't know, it was cerebral palsy, but it was very much strapped in the chair. And then right beside that, I don't know how I missed it. It was amazing when you open your eyes. It was the wife that was in a wheelchair bed.
Wow.
I'm like, oh my gosh. So my mind was on how to do hard. And I'm like looking back and I'm thinking this backstory, like, how did he get the son to ready for church? Like, how much time did it take to get him to go to the bathroom, to feed him, to get him strapped in and then in a wheelchair? How did you get him to church? I mean, you know how hard it is to get to church anyway, for you when you're having a good day, But this was like this. How did he do the hard? And then what's the deal with the wheelchair bed? This wife, like, how does he do all the hard? And all of a sudden, I was just sitting there just trying to imagine how his life is. What's the backstory? We don't know the backstory and the journey. And then all of a sudden, the boy in the wheelchair I found his name was Andrew later. I interviewed the family after, but he started getting agitated, making the moaning, the low sounds. He wasn't comfortable. And so he looked at his dad, and he was like, I need help. Like, I'm not happy, And so his dad kind of reached around and stroked his back a little bit, trying to pat him, make him feel comfortable and say, it's okay. But then he looked at him and said, no, it's not okay, basically, because he couldn't talk, And this person was about 40 years old, but I found out later, he's about 2 years old in his mind. So It was really hard. And then I thought his dad was getting up to take him out. I don't know if you see things when it's in slow motion, but this was for me to share. It was the most incredible experience, but I thought he was getting up to take him out, and actually he's unstrapping him from the wheelchair. So picture this 40-year-old, this older man, the father, taking a younger son, 40 years old, pulling him over, putting him on his lap.
Oh, wow.
Wrapped him around his body and stroked him, whispered sweet things, kissed him on the head, and just rocked him. You talk about Jesus in disguise. I mean, it was like, wow, how do you love a brokenness? We are broken. We're struggling. We're full of loss. We lack direction. And it was like, we are enough. This was a symbol of me. I'm enough. I'm helping you find, whatever you need. As a little 2-year-old boy in this 40-year-old body, we as grown, God loves us, hugs us. As we surrender in him, we're everything. And I was just like, it was like a download. I saw what I never saw when I walked in that church. To be able to have that community, that legacy is really about love. And then it was just like, that was the sermon I got that day. And so after they got done with the service, I thought, well, how does his wife do this? How does she show up in her pajamas, pretty much, laying in a wheelchair bed? Because she was loved. It was community. It was surrounded by music. If she was facing forward, she was in present motion. She was in a lot of pain. I found out later she had cancer. She was in the middle of, her whole life raising this Andrew, who was sick at 2 years of age, because I interviewed them after I got home, I reached out to them because I wanted them to be in the book so I could share their story, more of a layered thing. But she had this dream. She started out, and we can maybe wrap this up with the journey of giants, but her life began with 2 kids, all good, right? Then she had Andrew, and after 2 years, it wasn't good. And it was horrific. It was going to the doctor all the time, having to ask for help. Her house wasn't clean. It was just all this garbly journey that she thought, what's going on? I thought I was going to be this mother and just have a smooth sailing. Now I have to ask everybody for help, and I have to get up at 3 a.m, run to the hospital. I mean, it was always this big thing. And she decided and made a decision that she was going to look at it differently and saying, he is a gift. He is not a stress. Wow. We are going to learn from him. We're going to love him. And then after she raised him all her life, her husband said, I'm going to retire early. And I'm going to let you have your dream, because her dream was to be a music teacher. She had a music profession. She had, master's degree or whatever. So he retired early so she could go do her job. In the first little bit of her getting the studio, she got cancer. And then he's taking care of both of them. But so what it all is about love. It's about supporting others in their journey of legacy, community, expecting to see things. When you come in a room, you don't know, but you ask questions and boom, things pop out. Whether you talk about that scene that I just shared with you, or the fishing wire behind the car, or whatever else we're missing in life, we have to be able to know it's all comes down to love, letting things go, trusting God in the process, and being able to be aware of just hearing the stories. I reached out to this couple and I go, I want to hear your backstory. And I have 17 people in my book. weaved in with these 7 pillars with mine, because it perspective of different storms, different layers of whether it's a death or a handicapped child, or I have another lady that was born at 3 years of age, normal. Now she has it's called they call it FOP, but it's a human statue. You basically are hardening over your life. She's 40 years old now, and how does she stay strong? Like when you're in the middle of what is your dream? Your dream is to be grateful for everything the day of. I mean, wow. Like sometimes your dreams are shut down when you don't even have the ability to get out of the bed because your heart is a rock and it's like an ironing board. You're a statue laying down. How do you do that? So when those that are watching on the show, there's lots of things that are going on. And sometimes it's just like my friend with FOP, that you have to just sit in the day, and then you help turn it around by speaking out to those people that have the amputees, or you get the microphone or the letter writing or social media or whatever to live. That's your dream. And then being able to have where there's a book or you have a course, I have a course to guide you through how do we deep dive into not just surface, but scuba diving, really, get down deep and learn how do you ask the questions, layer the learning, and then do the personal growth work, because there's no way you can ever do this if you don't have support and tools and build for that community. So
that's beautiful. Ryan, final thoughts here from you?
Yeah, and Rachel, you are, I mean, your last name says that all. You're one of the smartest people that I've ever met in my life. My journey coming into the Giants and finding relationships that have been puzzle. It almost seems like God put in the puzzle pieces exactly where they needed to be when they needed to be there. And you've been that for me. You've helped me to shift my perspective and to grow and to adjust. And it's interesting because as we're sitting here talking, I'm sitting here in gratitude. And I don't know why I haven't noticed this as much before. I'm definitely grateful, but it's interesting when you're sitting in gratitude. The people that show up, and then you start to see the gifts that God gives you, and this is one of those gifts. You're one of those gifts, but because of you as well, we have Hugh Jacobson that's been chiming in this whole entire time that adds to almost every single episode of Wake Up with Giants. And thought about Hugh's journey as well, and how much of a storm it's been, and how Hugh and Jessica are here every single week with us, and just sitting here in gratitude. And so you've given me a ton of knowledge. I took down notes after notes after notes of things that you were able to gift me today. And then because of the gift that you gave me, it opened my mind up to to see the gifts that are sitting right here in front of me. So thank you. I appreciate you and for the impact that you are having every single day on other people. And then that spreads and spreads and spreads and grows. And your legacy is that. Your legacy is your family, your friends, the people that you get to touch and to talk to and to hug. We got a hug from Rachel, and I'll never forget that hug. And now because of you and our past crossing, we get to then take some of that and then go spread that out into the world. So thank you so much, Rachel, for being who you are and continuing to shift and adjust through life's storms.
Well, thank you so much. You both are giants. When I got to give you hugs, you're definitely pretty giants, a lot taller than me. That was so fun.
You're a little itty bitty lady.
Yeah, we had no idea. Yeah.
Like, you picked me up. I think you picked me up.
Yeah.
I've got the picture here. I'm going to pull this up just to share. I mean, this is the meeting of Rachel Smartt in person. I mean, that was after a decade, Beautiful. So, Rachel, thank you for being a part of our world. I know where you come from when you share. God has been at the center of your world, and that's opened up in my world as well. And so it shifts perspective when you know that things are handled behind the scenes. And that can feel really challenging to trust that. But what you're giving in your books and your experiences is a pathway for people to follow to start to trust that, to turn their view of things being challenges, from the negative to the positive, to go from I'm drowning to no, I'm floating. Those are the things that are powerful that I can see in your world. And a lot of that comes from your belief system on the back end of that you're handled, you're taken care of, that God's got you. And so I'm grateful for that point of view. There was a period of my life where I didn't have that at all. I just, I thought I was fully isolated and alone. And so I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful to see that in your journey. Your wisdom as far as, your philosophies of how to navigate the challenges, how to surrender, how to set your vision, how to create your impact and come from love. I mean, those are all valuable tools that I want to mirror in my life. And so I'm grateful for you demonstrating that.
I think,
yeah.
Well, I don't know if anybody's on this thing, and I was thinking about resiliency, but there's a faith resilience. There's a difference. And I was studying, if you ever want to study somebody that's been 31 years on this he's an epic global person on resiliency, and his Andrew Chate, I think it is. He's interviewed the best people on resiliency, and he says there's many layers to it. And we talk about, there's purpose, and there's all the things in the layer of the giant's journey, but there's 10%. It's 90% of it, and it's a spiritual. The ones that rise the strongest have a faith piece of it.
Yeah,
that is the power that we don't know what it is, and it's greater than anything in this world. So that's a difference.
That's all the unseen, right? That's where the surrender comes in. That's where the fishing line comes in. From a seagull and a fisherman across the world. So
some guy was having a real bad day with this big giant tangle of knot.
This better be for something good. Yeah, I need this for Rachel Smartt over in Georgia. So
or Georgia, sorry, I said
I
Florida.
want to give a little shout out to both of you too, because one of the things we didn't mention at all with resiliency is humor. Laughing at ourselves. And sometimes it takes a while to go back and go, it was horrific, but now it's hilarious.
It was horrific.
But you guys have a way to bring out the humor, and there's always some fun side of things in the pain of it all, and just show that is really, if you can laugh, you can heal.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And we got a little humor.
Yeah. Hugh is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for those that are watching, as always, thank you for being a part of the show. Your comments and conversations keep it going. They keep the energy alive. Andrea, thanks for being here. The energy of our tribe is what has kept us going. Sometimes when you feel that struggle and you want to give up, the tribe is there, and it just helps you keep stepping one more step. And so I'm grateful for the tribe. If you know of somebody in your world that would benefit from this message right here, please share it with them. Send them the link. It's on our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. We're trying to break that 1,000 mark on subscribers. We haven't quite reached it. We've got as many videos as we do subscribers. It's like 800 plus videos.
Hey, we made one for each of you.
So. Yeah, one for each of you. So help us break that 1,000 mark. That's where things really start to move for YouTube. And if you know somebody who would benefit from our show and what we're doing, please have them reach out to us or introduce us, and we'll be happy to serve. So appreciate you for being here. As always, make sure you go subscribe so you can see when we go live every single dang time. Go make it a giant day, and we will see you in the next video.
Love you too.